Jordan Love's NFL career really started against the Kansas City Chiefs after the hottest stretch of his NFL career, albeit a young one. He gets Kansas City once again, a fitting place for him to put a punctuation mark on the start to his NFL season, the first as a starter. Plus, the Packers starting to get healthy and Carrington Valentine making the most of his opportunity. How big a part of the Packers' future can he be? All of that on a loaded Locked On Packers. Let's do it.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts. You will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's Locked On Packers brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. You know how when you play some of these old school first person video games, I'm not a huge video game guy, but I'm familiar with the premise. Even something like Mario, you got to face the boss at the end of the level. To level up, you got to face the boss, and then progressively the bosses get tougher, right? And at the end of the game, inevitably, there is some sort of narrative boss where it's like, okay, all of the story arc is leading to this one moment, and you've got to defeat that. And it's both a metaphor and obviously a physical obstacle you have to overcome to win the game, right? Jordan Love's NFL career started in earnest against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2021. The team found out on Wednesday Aaron Rodgers had COVID. We're not going to dive into any of that. But they did not put Jordan Love in a position to succeed, and Matt LaFleur will be the first person to tell you that that's true. He did again yesterday in his press conference. I will always believe they tried to run the Aaron Rodgers game plan thinking they were going to get the Aaron Rodgers defense. That was obviously wrong, and they were very slow to adapt when Steve Spagnuolo decided we are going to zero pressure Jordan Love into the ground, and that's exactly what they did. The Packers had no plan for it, and they were slow to adjust to it. I don't hold too much of that game at the feet of Jordan Love, and let's not forget, the Packers defense played really well in that game to the point that if you look at both the traditional numbers and the advanced numbers, Jordan Love outplayed Patrick Mahomes. That's how good the Packers defense played. Now, they lost that game, but if they get one stop late in the game, Jordan Love gets the chance to go get the ball back and give yourself an opportunity to win. He didn't get that opportunity. Okay, fast forward to 2023. The season starts, get off to a nice little start, struggle in the middle of the season, and then as these rookie pass catchers get up to speed, as they find some continuity along the offensive line. By the way, I think this trying to find these guys on the fly and being willing to give rotation reps to players like, oh no, we're going to find the best guy. Sean Ryan, you're going to play 15 snaps today. Josh Nijman and Rasheed Walker, you're going to figure this out. We're going to find the best guy, and if we don't have the best guy, we're going to ride the hot hand, and you start playing bad, you're out. That's worked. This is one of the best pass protecting groups in football that has really stabilized after some bad moments against some competition. And over the last month, Jordan Love is playing top 10 quarterback kind of stuff, and you do it against a banged up Rams team, it can be dismissed. I understand that. You go to Pittsburgh against a really good defense, okay, but they lost. Okay, 200 yards against the, rushing. The defense gives up some things that are not necessarily in Jordan Love's control. Okay, he didn't come up when they needed him to come up. But then you go blow for blow with Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert played awesome in that game. And not only do you hang with Justin Herbert, both qualitatively and quantitatively, but the Packers win in large part because you play well. On a short week, you go to Detroit, the team that currently runs this division, against a team that just beat you to a pulp 6 weeks prior. And on the road, in front of God and everyone on Thanksgiving, you give them the absolute business. 7 yards per play in that game. Unbelievable offensive performance that frankly could have been even better. You have some drops and some miscues, or the Packers could have easily gotten to 35 points or even more. And maybe had they been trying later in the game, if they needed to get some more points, they certainly, it seemed like, could have. Justin Herbert is a boss. Jared Goff, for whatever you want to say about Jared Goff was playing really good football most of the year, played really good football most of last year. This is a quarterback who personifies that button pusher guy that can just sit back there and with a good offensive coordinator press all the right buttons, the Jimmy Garoppolo, the Brock Purdy, and just say, I got it. You got to beat that guy. If you're going to be a true franchise quarterback, Jordan Love did it. And didn't just beat that guy, outplayed him handily and played the best game of your career. The fourth, I think, best game of his career or something close to it in 4 weeks. That's the remarkable part. The Rams game, you could have said, oh, that's the best Jordan Love game that he's played. And the Pittsburgh Steelers game, you could easily have said, that's the best game he's ever played in the NFL. The Chargers game, same thing. And then, to me, unequivocally, the Lions game is context, circumstance, no Luke Musgrave, no Aaron Jones, David Bakhtiari out for the year, Dontavian Wicks down 2, and you go into Detroit and you put it on the Lions. I don't care what the final score said. They were up 2 scores from the jump in that game. From the first quarter on, they were up 2 scores until there's, 46 seconds left in the game or whatever it was. So now, now what do you get? In the Leap for yesterday, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to, one of the questions I asked, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is this just who Jordan Love is now? You go through the ups of the first month, you go through the downs of the second month, and now the third month of the season. It's high highs. We're talking vertiginous. One of my favorite words. Vertiginous high. But now you got Patrick Mahomes. And not just Patrick Mahomes. And I know Patrick Mahomes doesn't play defense. I've always thought that was a silly thing. But you got to go blow for blow with that guy. With the best guy doing it. With the baddest man on the planet in this league right now. And he's not even having a great season by his standards, because guess what, you guys? When you have continuity around you, it's really easy to be great. And when you don't, and the Chiefs don't right now, Kadarius Toney doesn't know his you-know-what from a hole in the ground, and Sky Moore didn't become the player that they needed him to be, and Rashee Rice cannot be as reliable as they need him to be. And is this sounding familiar to you at all? Well, the Packers don't have Travis Kelce. They don't have that built-in experience with the system with Andy Reid, one of the best play callers ever. But this is the next level. This is the next boss. And in a lot of ways, this can be the final boss, at least of this part of the game. Because if you go out and beat the Chiefs, and essentially announce to the league, you're a top 10 quarterback and the Packers are back, baby. Because if you do that, if you beat the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Lions in successive weeks, you have announced yourself to the league as a team and as a player. And quarterbacks do not win on their own. QB wins, nonsense. But you go out and you earn your team. You backpack this team to a win against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who are among Super Bowl favorites. And there aren't any other questions to answer in this part of the stages of development. You have said, look, I am capable of playing like a top 10 quarterback. This is who I am. I am capable of playing well enough to beat any quarterback you throw at me. Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes, you name the guy. I can go shot for shot, touchdown for touchdown with that dude against, by the way, a really, really, really good Kansas City Chiefs defense. You do that, it's over. Sign the extension now. He's the franchise. That's the moment that Jordan Love has in front of him. He can solidify himself as a no doubt franchise quarterback on Sunday against the preeminent franchise in the league right now, especially now that Brady is gone from the Patriots, and that is a whole disaster over there. The Chiefs are the gold standard. Even in a year where they don't quite seem Chiefsy, even though they keep winning all these games. That's the opportunity. And isn't it fitting that he would have that opportunity now against the team where his NFL career really started? And if it doesn't happen, if they don't win, if he doesn't play his best, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's the Chiefs. It's a banged up Packers team without Aaron Jones probably and David Bakhtiari. And we'll see about Dontavian Wicks. Luke Musgrave not going to play in this game. 3 more weeks on IR. We're going to talk about that in a second. There are plenty of things that we can do to excuse the performance. But that will make the performance, if he gives it, all that more worthy of a standing ovation. That's what he has in front of him. And the beauty of what comes next, if you're a fan, is you just get to sit back and watch. Knowing that the Packers are not expected to win. If they win, it's gravy. And if they win, it'll be because the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers is ready to take the reins of this franchise. All right, we're going to come back and talk about the health of this team coming up here in just a second on Locked On Packers. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. I recently bought some tickets to Bucks Nets, and it was such a headache. I just want to know that what I'm getting is the real deal. Luckily, I have Game Time. And Game Time can give you last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area with the lowest price guaranteed. Plus event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and views from all the seats in the venue. That is really the thing that I am most worried about, especially when I go to a game. I need to know the sight line is good. Am I going to be able to see the action? Am I going to be able to see the concert if I'm going to a concert? That's what I need. Game Time gets you all of it. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. The lowest price guaranteed. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, we got some injury updates that I just want to go through because it has been a while since this team has been on the field. And they are getting to be the safest version of themselves here. Jair Alexander back at practice. Darnell Savage back at practice. Eric Stokes back at practice. Now Aaron Jones dealing with that MCL injury, which was what we suspected. Seems like week to week. I wouldn't expect he was working in the rehab group on Monday. So was A.J. Dillon, which is not great, by the way, because they are perilously thin at the running back position. Like if it's Patrick Taylor and stuff, it's getting tight. But defensively is where you really like to see what's happening here, because we're going to talk about Carrington Valentine at the end of the show. And so I don't want to preempt that part of it too much. But he has played well enough that if they just had a passable guy opposite him, they'd really be in good position passing defense-wise. Like having to play Jonathan Owens and Anthony Johnson Jr. has not been a major detriment to this defense. It's not any worse. Part of that is because a lot of the communication and that stuff has been bad, period. But Darnell Savage being back helps that theoretically, but it also gives you options. Can you play some 3 safety looks now that you know what you're getting? Rudy Ford working his way back. Do you have more of these guys who you can go and say, oh, how about this different kind of look, a 3 safety look, someone who is just going to be a Travis Kelce guy? Could you do something like that with Devondre Campbell practicing? Is that going to give you an opportunity to be a little bit more sound in your run fits? This team on Thursday, and we touched on it in the open, if the offense can lead them the way that they have, and now the defense is going to get healthy, and then you add back in Dontavian Wicks, and you give Tucker Kraft a couple more opportunities as he gets comfortable, and you Christian Watson gives you, it just changes fundamentally who you can be when Christian Watson plays like he did on Thursday. And defensively, the secondary, the goal is to just not give up big plays. They gave up on it was 2 really bad drives where just bad communication, pretty basic concepts, and they just get crushed on it. The reason it didn't kill them is because Rashawn Gary can single-handedly take over a game. And Kenny Clark can single-handedly take over a game. And so when you can rush the passer like that, it makes it easier to not worry about what's happening in the back end with your coverage. But for teams that can handle it, or for teams like the Chiefs where Patrick Mahomes is just a magician, escaping pressure, turning pressure into something positive for his team, it is so hard for pressure to be the thing that gets Patrick Mahomes. In fact, Lou Anarumo in Cincinnati, the only thing that has ever really worked against Pat Mahomes has been rushing 3 and dropping 8. This could be a Joe Barry bread and butter opportunity. And by the way, it was Joe Barry at the helm in 2021 when they clamped up Patrick Mahomes and this offense with Tyreek Hill. So that part of it, if you just get a little better in the secondary, I don't know how big an upgrade Darnell Savage is right now. He was playing some good football earlier in the season. I think getting Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander back, pretty important for this team. Although I don't know that you're going to supplant Carrington Valentine. The way that we started to view this team at the beginning of the season, where the young offensive players coalesce, you get that year 2 jump. Christian Watson, we saw, I think, the best version of Romeo Doubs last week where, in breakers, in traffic, reach up and snatch the ball. Early, quick game stuff, 1-step, 3-step drops, little sit routes in the middle of the field. Snatch it and go get 3 or 4 extra yards. That's where Romeo Doubs can win. I think the Kendrick Bourne comps to me with Romeo Doubs are that's where I am right now with him. I think that he can be someone who in the red zone is so reliable, so good. And then in space, it's just these very specific places where he can win. He's not going to carry an offense, but he can be a really nice, useful player for your offense. Christian Watson is your alpha theoretically. Now, if he can't be that, you got to go get somebody. You're not going to have Luke Musgrave, but I think Tucker Kraft did a reasonable facsimile of that last week. They didn't feed him in the same sort of way because they fed Christian Watson. And I think those are related because they were able to use Christian Watson in the slot. He scored the touchdown on the slot fade from in there. And maybe that's a Luke Musgrave play if Luke Musgrave is healthy. And maybe that's just the reality of where this team was, where, a lot of the stuff, the vertical stuff that Luke Musgrave was doing, that would have been Christian Watson's or vice versa. Now Christian Watson slots into that role a little bit more naturally and can produce. The pieces fit better the more players that they get back. Dontavian Wicks can just do the things that he does best. Matt LaFleur has, in his brief, although it's getting longer, trajectory with the Packers, they've had Devontae Adams, of course, the alpha of alphas, who can just do everything that you want offensively. But then everyone else has been a role player, but a high-level role player. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, premier speed threat down the field when he catches the ball. Allen Lazard, premier blocking, physical, war daddy, big body receiver. And then Randall Cobb, albeit a past his prime, Randall Cobb in the slot. He's a slot-only player, but okay. At one point, he was an elite slot receiver. Of course, at this point in his career, not that. Can't even get on the field for New York. But Jaden Reed, you got a slot. Christian Watson, we know vertically what he can do. Romeo Doubs, that possession type. Dontavian Wicks, got a little goon in him. Malik Heath, got a little goon war daddy Allen Lazard in him. They're making tough catches in traffic and then making plays after the catch. The pieces fit. Now, they don't quite have the same room on defense at corner. We've talked about this in the past. Everydayers will remember some of the conversations we've had about, cornerback and receiver rooms like a basketball team where you'd like to be able to match up with a number of different types of teams. I don't know who the Packers throw on Travis Kelce. It's going to have to be a committee. This is why you drafted Quay Walker. This is why you have Devondre Campbell. This is, by the way, why you have 4 safeties that you feel comfortable playing now. I'd like to see Anthony Johnson Jr. get some opportunities against Travis Kelce, converted corner. Someone with coverage skills, but who is a bigger body. Do they get creative with someone like Carrington Valentine? There's only so much you can do because they do use Travis Kelce as an actual blocker. He does play in line. They don't just split him out. But there could be some interesting things you do here. As you get healthier, it just gives you more opportunities to get creative. Now, can the Packers do that? We'll see. We're going to talk about one player who does not have to get creative. He just can be himself. And that's Carrington Valentine. We're going to talk about him coming up in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, the weather is getting colder, but the NFL offers are staying hot at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. Oh, really? A $5 money line bet. You say, well, the Packers plus 235 on the money line right now. 6.5-point home dogs to the Kansas City Chiefs. You're getting good value right now for the Packers. And you can get $150 in bonus bets if it hits. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. A wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and keep the NFL season going hot, even as it gets colder outside. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Everydayers, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. In the last 4 games, so since the Packers traded Russell Douglas, this is from our friend Ross Uglum over at Packer Report. Packers rookie cornerback Carrington Valentine is 17th in the NFL in coverage grade. His 52.3 passer rating when targeted is 3rd best. And his 31.9 completion percentage is 2nd best in the NFL. Only Jalen Ramsey has been better since he became the full-time preferred starter. Now, I still don't love the Russell Douglas trade. I didn't think they got enough value to move off a player who has been culturally impactful for this team. That being said, there is also a cultural impact to having someone like Valentine be a starting cornerback for your squad. The amount of want to that he plays with, the swagger, the intensity is infectious. It holds everyone else to that standard as well. When you have a guy who's playing like that and he stinks, no one cares. But if he's balling like Carrington Valentine is, then guys go, man, if he's doing that and it's working, he's playing great. Like, I got to pick up my game. I got to pick up my intensity level. Rashawn Gary is the same way because he plays with that infectious energy. I mean, guys, there was a shot of Rashawn Gary with smelling salts in his mouth. In his mouth. That's just guys being dudes. Just guys being dudes. When you look at, and the Rashawn Gary example is a good one because when you look at those two positions, pass rusher and corner, you want guys that are a little crazy. You want guys that believe they are the best players on the field at all times. You, as a pass rusher, want to believe you are unblockable. As a corner, you want to believe I am unscore-onable. You cannot get off of my defense. And Valentine has played that way. He plays sticky. He plays aggressive. Like, I know I can manhandle you. I don't care who you are. I don't care how many more years in the league you have played than I have. I am coming and I'm going to be here in your jersey for 60 minutes. You need players like that. And Russell Douglas, one of the reasons why I didn't like that trade is when you asked him to be that, which they did in 2021, he could. He set the tone for you. Carrington Valentine right now looks like he is a talented enough player to be a legit starting corner in the league. That is valuable in itself. But then to also be a starting caliber corner who plays with the intensity and the grit and the it's swagger. I wish Eric Stokes played with a little bit more of that nasty. Now, Eric Stokes has got to be him. The best version of yourself on the football field is you being true to yourself. So I've seen Eric Stokes play really good football, and he's got a smile on his face. I love that too. Charles Woodson didn't have to be, a nasty guy to be a really good football player. The best DB I ever saw. So I don't want to make it like that. I wish Joe Barry would let these guys, because when they let Eric Stokes press, when they let him play press man, he's really good. Let him do that. But Valentine brings his own. He brings his own. He's BYOE, bring your own energy. I don't like he's bringing it. Regardless of what the call is, he doesn't care. He doesn't know any better to be annoyed with the call, but he's got something to prove. I love that. And I think it trickles down. I think it not just down because it's not really down, but it trickles out. It's infectious. And I'm really excited to see what he looks like down the stretch because I think he can be a player for this team for a long time. Does that mean you don't have to do anything about corner? Like right now, you're like, oh, I don't know. Well, Jair's under contract. He's going to be around. Like the questions about him are silly. Eric Stokes, assuming he can get back to full health, I am still very confident he can be a good player. I'm not confident that it's not going to be Joe Barry calling the defense soon, but I would like to see them in a different defense. We'll see if that happens. But he is putting them in a position right now where, and they have put themselves in a position with winning these games that we don't have to talk about the draft right now in late November. But when you look out long term, they don't need, I think, to address cornerback right now. Now, always add good players, but it does not have to be on the top of their wish list right now. If, and it's a big if, you can get Eric Stokes back healthy and go, okay, this looks like the guy that we saw his rookie season. Until we do, though, the only guys you're really that sure about are Jair Alexander. For the moment, that's the list, but Valentine is trending toward being someone who you can say, okay, this guy can start for us and be a high-level defender on this team. That is excellent scouting by the Packers, player development, all that good stuff. And it's paying off for them. All right, back tomorrow. How you doing? We've got our crossover Thursday and a Friday show. I'm working on getting an interview where this has been my fault. We have not had as many interviews of late. The scheduling has been tricky for me with two kids. So I'm working on it. I promise. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you'll find Locked On Packers. And anytime you want to come hang out with us live, like we will be on YouTube after the game this weekend, go subscribe and then come hang out with us so you can stay Locked On Packers.